Good morning, folks. Welcome back to the Scullivan Show. I'm David Scullivan.
I'm David Solano.
And we're back today to talk to you about joints. David, let's start with you. What do you have to say about joints?
Let's start with bone repair. Millions of Americans every year are affected by really debilitating and hard to work with conditions that deal with bone fractures and bone conditions. Yeah, it's been truly a tough time. But technology luckily has been there for us, and it's been able to help us rebuild those bones.
Well, it's about time technology steps in and does something for us, huh?
Yeah, I guess we're right there. Let's talk about the first one. Is electrical stimulation of fracture sites. When a bone is fractured, there are certain regions around the body where there is a net charge, electrical charge. And typically, bone tissue is deposited there. Other regions where there's positive charge is typically a region where bone tissue is absorbed. Around those regions is where we would like to stimulate, is because certain regions have fractures, but the electrical stimulation does not exist. And so we add that stimulation, which allows more bone tissue to form around those regions. The second form of treatment can speed the repair of fresh fractures. This treatment entails daily exposure to pulsed low-power ultrasound waves and reduces the healing time of specific regions by 35 to 45%. It can even stimulate cartilage cells to produce callus. The third is free vascular fibular graft technique. It replaces grafting in many ways because it's more efficient, and it uses fragments of fibula as a substitute for grafting. Fourth is self-extendable endoprosthesis. It's basically kind of like a telescopic sleeve that you stick into your knee, and it basically contracts and elongates based on the movement of your knee. The continued elongation through knee bending produces an adequate remodeling or replica of the bone, specifically the knee area. The next one is vascular endothelial growth factor, and this is basically a protein that stimulates growth in blood vessels. And scientists hope to one day be able to build arteries and even bone tissue. And it also can help inform osteoclasts in many mice experiments. The last one is bone substitutes. Crushed cadaver bones we use to make synthetic material which can be used to fill gaps in non-union defects. We can use it as a paste, and typically human cadavers mixed with water form this kind of paste.
Excellent job, David. Now we're jumping to bone diseases. For those of you who don't know much about bone disease, we're gonna skip the hard stuff like the rare diseases. We're talking about chondroblastoma, osteoidostomas. Not many people will have that. However, it's a very rare and debilitating condition. That's all you really need to know about it. We're going to focus on the big issue, and the big issue is arthritis. It affects millions of Americans every year. The most common forms are osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis. Two main types of arthritis are osteoarthritis, which affects up to 85% of Americans a year. That's millions of people a year. The old people are most affected by osteoarthritis, and what happens is it affects the articular cartilage, and over the years the cartilage softens, frays, and eventually it breaks down. As the disease progresses, the exposed bone thickens and extra bone tissue called bone spurs can appear. The second type of arthritis is rheumatoid arthritis, and rheumatoid arthritis is a chronic inflammatory disorder. The onset is insidious, and it usually occurs between the ages of 40 and 50. It affects 3 times as many women as men, so women need to watch out for it especially. And this can occur, again, from ages 40 to 50, so you don't necessarily need to be that old to be affected by rheumatoid arthritis. And that's all I have for you on bone diseases. We're going to turn things over to Dr. E.
So today we are going to talk about the joint. So another professional for joint is articulation, and the two main functions of joints are hold or bond together and give the rigid skeletal movability. And joints also can classify by 2 ways. They are functionally and structurally. So let's talk about structurally. There are 3 ways about the joints. There are fibrous joint, synovial joint, and cartilaginous joint.
Thank you, Ming Yao. As always, that was excellent work. Now we're turning things over to Dr. Albino, and he is here to talk to us about cartilaginous joints and fibrous joints. Kevin, take it away.
Thank you, David. Today I'll be talking about fibrous and cartilaginous joints. Fibrous joints are connected by fibrous connective tissue, which are made up of collagen. And the best example of this would be the sutures in your skull, which consist of irregular bone edges bounded together by connective tissue fibers. The other main joint we're going to be talking about today is cartilaginous joints, which is the bone ends are connected by cartilage. It allows more movement than the fibrous joints, which is good for us. Some examples include the pubic symphysis of the pelvis, which allows slight movement.
Thank you, Kevin. After this break, we're going to turn back to Dave, and he's going to talk to us about synovial joints. Stay with us. Thank you, Dr. Albiner. Now we're turning over back to David, and David, I hear you're going to talk to us about synovial joints. What you got for us today?
Alright, well, synovial joints are pretty interesting joints. These joints are articulating bone ends that are separated by joint cavities, and these cavities are filled with joint synovial fluid. Now, they account for pretty much all joints in the limbs, but they have four main distinguishing features. First, they have articular cartilage. Second, they have fibrous articular capsules. Third, they have joint cavities. And next, they have reinforcing ligaments. Next are two very important features. The first is called bursae. Now, they are flattened fibrous sacs lined with synovial membrane, and they contain a film of synovial fluid. And this is most common, of course, in ligaments. After that, we follow with a tendon sheath, which is basically like an elongated bursa, and they wrap completely around a specific tendon that's mostly been exposed to a lot of friction. These tendon sheaths typically are like a bun around a hot dog, if you want to think about it.
Well, thank you, David. We appreciate you talking to us about synovial joints. Now, our final guest of the day will be Dr. Iki Aikawa.
Hey guys, this is Scully the Skeleton, and I'm here to tell you about the different types of joints based on their shape. So, the first one you're going to see is the hinge joint, which is this. It is right there. That's the hinge joint, which is the elbow. It is uniaxial because it only allows movement in one axis. The next joint is the plane joint, which is right here on my hand. It is the carpal. So it has basically no movement, so it's called non-axial. It just glides. So that is the plane joint. The next joint we will be talking about is the condyloid joint, which is right here on my finger. So condyloid joint is biaxial. It moves in two different planes. So it moves around back and forth like this. The next joint is the saddle joint, which is basically the condyloid joint, except it is on your thumb. So it does the same movement as the condyloid. It is uniaxial. The next joint we'll be talking about is the saddle joint, which is on your thumb. And it is basically the same thing as the condyloid joint. It does the same movement. It is biaxial. It moves in the same direction as the condyloid joint, except it is on your thumb. The last joint we'll talk about is the ball and socket joint, which is connecting your chest and your arm right here. It is the most freely movable joint, and it is multi-axial, which allows movement in all directions, like so. And that is all the joints. There are 6 types of joints, and that's all of them.
Thank you, Geeky. That was a very humorous discussion about joints. Well, that's all for you today. I'm David.
I'm David Solano.
And this has been The Scullivan Show. We'll see you back here next time.
Hey yo.